Hi everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. So I found this really great resource that's a summary of a lot of the federal broadband programs that are active or out right now. So I'll be sharing that in just a moment. Stand by. Thanks for joining me. Rick Usda here, Broadband Deployment News. So I found this resource that I thought was really good. Right here you see it, Federal Broadband Funding Opportunities. So I was going to share this, and then I'll post a link to this. I'll also probably post a couple links that I've done on previous broadcasts where I talk about a few of these programs a little bit more in depth. But I thought this was pretty interesting. So this is by Common Sense, which is Common Sense Media. And they are an organization that actually I've seen before as far as movies and TV and helping parents with what their kids should be watching. So you can go there and look at reviews of movies. They'll review them themselves, but then also parents go up there and review. So they might put a review a certain way, but the parents will come on and say, "Oh, I thought this was terrible for my kids. They shouldn't be seeing this kind of stuff." So anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting that they've got this broadband funding opportunity summary that they've got made available here. But I guess it maybe does make sense because one of the things that we've seen is that kids need broadband for learning. We saw this especially with the pandemic, so that may be the connection there. So as you look at this, the way it's broken down, you see down up here in the top the user key. You've got deployment. I'm going to look around this side, easier to read for me. You got deployment. That's talking about construction and improvement of infrastructure. Devices, that would be provision of computers and tablets. So they're talking about there something like the affordable connectivity program or the emergency broadband benefit that preceded that, where you could get a $100 subsidy for devices. Affordability, that would also be something like affordability program, and then also EBB. That would be cost support programs, a subsidy for the actual service. That could be Lifeline. Then you've got inclusion, that would be digital literacy training, digital skills training, tech support, those kinds of things. So that they list here on the right, and they check off on these programs whether they cover those particular things. So in some cases they cover all of them, in some cases maybe just deployment, in some cases devices and affordability. That would be the extension of the EBB right here. So, and then on the left you've got the particular program, I guess the umbrella that it's all under. So in this case you've got the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That would be the Biden infrastructure bill that was passed and signed into law on November 15th, I think it was. Yeah, right there, November 15th. So then it's got the total amount of the bill, but then down here you got a breakdown. Again, this was infrastructure, so it's not all about broadband. There's about $65 billion in broadband in that program. The numbers that they have here add up to about $60 billion, so I'm not sure what they may have left out. There could be something in there that they don't mention here. So here's this yellow area. Right here is all the IIJA and the different programs. Then as you go down, you've got the American Rescue Plan Act, that's ARPA, that was passed. That was March 11th, 2021, so that tells you a little bit about when that was passed. And then you've got down here the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. So ARPA and the Consolidated Appropriations Act were very much pandemic-related reactions to that, and the fact that everybody suddenly was home, parents and kids, parents working from home, kids doing school from home. Hey, we need better broadband, and also a lot of this was related to people losing their jobs, so there was funds for that. You got the CARES Act, ways, paycheck protection, I think, was in here. Lots of things that were related to the pandemic. Then you've got some other programs down here, including the USDA RUS Reconnect grant program, and then Good Jobs Challenge, and then the Lifeline program, which has been around for a really long time. So that's kind of how it's broken down. And then under each section, they give a really good summary of what you've got in the bill. Right here, a summary there. You've got who the recipients are. You've got the total amount up here. For example, in the BEAD, Broadband Equity Access and Deployment portion of this, that's the biggest portion of the IIJA as far as broadband. That's the 42.5 million or so that's available for broadband, and it talks about the recipients, who those are, which is going to be states and territories, who then are going to subgrant that out to the operators, the service providers. And it's got the timeline in here. It says NOFO likely by the end of May 2020. That's a notice of funding opportunity, so that's the next step for the NTIA to take. Oh, and it does talk about the agency here. The NTIA is the agency that's managing that. So they're supposed to put out a NOFO according to the bill within 6 months of the passing or signing of the bill by President Biden. So that would be May 2022, this year. However, there's really nothing in the bill, there's no penalties that say if they don't get it out by that time, something happens. So I'm sure they're going to try their best, but there's a lot that's going to happen, so we can't say for sure. It could be earlier, but my guess is it's going to be at the very last minute, or it may even go later, because something else that's required is the FCC maps. The FCC is trying to get the kind of the basic framework, architecture of the maps, and then getting all the data on there. It's supposed to be a map that's going to show every single address and who has broadband and what that quality of broadband is like. So there's a lot that's going into that. So the maps have to be out before any funds are released as well. So this NOFO could take longer, and the maps certainly could take longer than that. Shows you the uses again here. And then there's some different resources that you can click on. You've got some analysis from a few different organizations. And then on some of these, you'll see, like Telecompetitor, there's probably an article there. I haven't clicked on all of them that will take you to more information about kind of news information or analysis about these particular programs. So again, you've got BEAD right here, the $42.5 billion. Tells you the type of allocation formula versus competitive grants. The formula here on BEAD, I believe, is it's going to be based on unserved and underserved areas and the states, and there's a formula that goes in as to how much money they're each going to get. A lot of that's going to be covered in the NOFO when that comes out. We've got a State Digital Equity Capacity Grant Program of $1.5 billion. We've got the Digital Competitive Grant Program. That's a competitive grant of $1.25. Again, there's all the details on that here and who is eligible for that. Again, public entities, private companies. So this one here, Digital Equity Competitive Grant Program, unlike the BEAD and this State Digital Equity Capacity Grant Program, some of these funds can go directly to the service providers. So you see here public entities, private companies, nonprofits, and corporations, etc. Middle mile grant programs, there's $1 billion for that. So that's to try to make sure that we have middle mile infrastructure. So if you've got an unserved or underserved area that's just sitting off on an island somewhere, you need good middle mile infrastructure to be able to connect that up, to be able to get good broadband as well. So there's $1 billion for that. And again, that would be going to state and local governments who would be then trying to figure out, or tribal private companies, to try to figure out where that can be best applied. And you've got the extension and modification of the emergency broadband benefits, so the EBB, and that was part of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. So that EBB, that was an emergency broadband benefit that was put in place for people that had lost their jobs, for example, and they needed help with paying for broadband, and there was a $50 subsidy they could get if they signed up for that, and if their service provider also signed up for that. And the service provider could provide a $50 subsidy that was paid by the government. That has been transitioned to the now the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So the Affordable Connectivity Program is taking the place of this EBB right here. I highlighted some things here also. You've got the timelines I mentioned here. This one, $60 million for planning, is available in FY 2022. So some of the funds for this will be released probably before this NOFO goes out for this BEAD program. And then it says $1.4 million available between fiscal year 2022 and 2026. States have 5 years to spend the awards. So there's good information here on the right about the timeline on these things. Here it mentions the NOFO likely by the end of May 2022 as well for this middle mile grant program. Here, when it's talking about the EBB extension, it says the ACP, Affordable Connectivity Program, lasts until funds are exhausted. So they're transitioning the EBB funds, or have already been transitioned, I guess, to the ACP. And the ACP now is accepting applications from subscribers who want to apply for that. And then also any service providers can also apply for that. I believe, if I remember, if you were already enrolled in the EBB, you don't have to go through a lot of hoops to get into the ACP. You may just be automatically transitioned over. And you would know that if you're in it. Then you've got tribal broadband connectivity funding, and this is a continuation of the tribal broadband connectivity program that was in the Consolidated Appropriations Act. A couple of these are not accepting applications any longer because they're kind of past the time, and this one is past the time. not currently accepting applications. First awards made in November 2021. The remainder expected by spring of 2022 as far as awards. Then you've got this is ARPA here, American Rescue Plan Act, also like I said, very COVID related. You got your Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund, request funding from September 24th through December 27, 2021, but tribes from October 1 to June 1, 2022, so it looks like there's still an opportunity there on that one. Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, SLFRF, and Treasury is still accepting submissions on that. I did do as I mentioned, a broadcast on ARPA not long ago, so I'll link to that because this is still, this $350 million or so, there's still funds available for that. They're still accepting funds, accepting applications for those funds. Emergency Connectivity Fund, first 2 application windows have closed. The third window may be announced for the remaining $1 billion. So that was originally $7.17 billion. Then you've got a Homeowner Assistance Fund. The application is closed on that, as well as the Elementary School Emergency Relief. That was all funds awarded as of September 30th, 2021. Then you've got your emergency broadband benefit. That's what I was talking about. That has been transitioned to the ACP. You've got your Broadband Infrastructure Grant Program. This is all part of the Consolidated Appropriations Act. So a lot of this is over, but it's good to know what was out there and what's still going on as far as what's to be awarded, and it just gives you a good general idea of what this program was all about. And again, a couple of these things have transferred over, like the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program and the EBB are transferring or kind of being assumed into by the IIJA items right here. And you got your Governor's Emergency Relief Fund, and again, Governor must have awarded funds by January 2022. So it sounds like that's well on its way, and all funds are already being awarded or need to be awarded by that date. Then you've got Usda Reconnect, and this is still accepting applications as well, accepting applications until February 2nd, 2022. So you've got a little bit of time left on that. I also did a broadcast about that I will link to. That one's all about deployment. And then you've got a Good Jobs Challenge. That's also accepting applications until February 10, 2022, and you can read about that here as well. That's more for adoption. Then you've got Lifeline, helping low-income consumers afford telephone and broadband bills. That's been around for a long time. It's kind of an ongoing program for consumers. So you can see that's a consumer subsidy here. That's what that's all about. And again, over here on the right, you've got links to more information as well. So I just thought that was a really interesting summary by a company that I didn't expect to see it from, but I do understand that, again, they're trying to help kids as far as media, TV, movies, whatever, and that would also include, so they have access to broadband. So that's a really good resource, I think. So if you're a state trying to get a good summary of information, if you're a service provider, there's a lot of good info there. So hopefully that was helpful for you. If it was, please give me a thumbs up on YouTube. I'd appreciate that. And then make sure you subscribe and click the little bell so you'll be notified whenever I'm broadcasting live, or that you'll get at least a notification you can watch it later recorded. Thanks for joining me. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.